Hey everybody, today I want to talk about a popular topic in politics, privilege. Everybody's heard the phrase check your privilege or white privilege or any other phrase implying that majorities in the population have some sort of privilege. In many cases, the ones with the privilege aren't the ones accused of having it. The historical pretense of this argument dates back to colonial America, and this time, as we all know, slavery was legal and very popular. Of course, the slaves were mostly blacks, but that's not including the Irish slaves that are often overlooked in the books of history. Far-left activists love to preach about the inherent privilege held by whites in America. Police are used as a prime example of a place in which whites are favored. If we analyze data collected by the FBI in 2014, we begin to see that despite making up 12% of America's population, blacks were convicted of nearly half of the crimes as whites, while still being convicted of more murder and robbery. In total, the ratio of population to crime is over 2 to 1. This extremely disproportionate number calls to question many things, including the reason that black crime is so high. Mind you, I am most definitely not a racist. I'm simply pointing out the fact that, due to many reasons, black crime is higher on average. I cannot pin this on the black population either. There have been many things done by the government and city in general that have put blacks in this position. I'm simply stating the facts. Many people like to think that police simply pull over, shoot, and arrest blacks due to racism. However, in a majority of cases, those pulled over have indeed violated some rule, law, or another, such as drunk driving, speeding, etc. If we refer back to the previously stated crime statistics, there is indeed precedent for extra caution around ethnic minorities, including refugees. I hate to discuss the issue of racial equality because there's a lot of stigma around the topic. You can hardly set foot into the argument without being called a racist, let alone point out facts that seem to be demeaning to the other side. I do hope that this discussion will reach a point to the end that we can reasonably lay out all of the present facts. Who really holds the privilege between whites and blacks? In many cases, whites are falling behind. Due to affirmative action programs, a black female in many cases is much more likely to be hired than a white male, even a white female. This is often where the discrimination argument arises. I know very, very few people who would ever hire a less qualified white person. This paleo-Confederate ideology has very little footing in modern America. It has become the case that in both college and employment, recruiters and employers are very narrowly obligated to prioritize the induction of black individuals. This is, for one thing, to avoid appearing racist. A company which hires solely on skill level could theoretically be all white or black. I believe that this is how the system should operate. While it does leave some people behind, it creates a more capitalistic society in which skill and meritocracy are the important factors, and thus allows businesses to prosper without having to worry about hiring less talented people for the sake of skin color, thus creating racism. Let's now discuss gender equality. We've all heard of the wage gap, the terrible entity holding American women back. I'd like to point something out in light of this. If I owned a business and I could get away with paying a woman 3/4 of her male counterpart or equal skill, wouldn't I just hire all women? This creates a sort of contradiction, which is not playing to the favor of the opposing side. Were I to hire all women, I would obviously not be sexist allowing them in my workplace. If I didn't want to have women in my workplace, wouldn't I just hire all men? Secondly, we should analyze the root of the idea. Why would women be paid less for the same work? This is something rarely discussed amongst gender equality circles. We have to find a reasonably formed argument explaining why women would theoretically be paid less money. We don't live in a society where women are hated. We leave that to the Middle East. America, we have no reason to dislike women. I have not met a single person in my life that has genuinely believed women to be inferior human beings, but I'm being told that this is the way the world is seen. If we begin to look into society's treatment of both genders, there are definitely arguments for both sides, but not as many as on the feminist side as they'd like to think. First, as previously mentioned for ethnic minorities, women are more likely to be inducted in many cases due to affirmative action. This creates a sort of racism against whites. This forced system of a vision of equality flips the scales, turning each side from one position to another. It also says that blacks and women are unable to make their own ways in their lives. I believe that were the system left alone, everybody would be happier and the society would resolve itself. Let's also look at some other statistics regarding gender. According to an infographic, combat deaths since the first Gulf War have 97% been male. Suicide victims have been 80% male, 93% of industrial deaths and accidents have been on the part of males. 80% of females win child custody cases. Homicide victims are 93% male, and the average jail sentence of a male is nearly 3 times that of a woman. While some of these things are subjectively due to the actions of the individual, many of these things are also due to the place in which they've been put, the job they've been put into, etc. This is also due to the drafting system that was implemented, is undebatably biased towards hiring men. These are just several examples of places in which men do not hold any inherent privilege. Places in which men would undebatably hold a privilege have been massively counteracted by government programs and social protests alike. These are very far and few between, and very highly exaggerated.